"Are you sure this, girl? Can you pay the bill?" he whispered the Bella Vista restaurant manager, loud enough so that Maya Rodriguez could hear every poisonous word while waiting for her table. The prestigious dining house in the center of Manhattan was crowded that cold night of December, and the 19-year-old Philippine was clearly the only person there who didn't wear designer clothes. His faded hotel uniform, still with the badge hanging around his neck, brutally contrasted with the Italian suits and silk dresses around him. "Maybe she's better looking for a more suitable for her budget," continued the manager, Mrs. Patterson, adjusting her gold glasses while examining Maya up and down with poor disguised contempt. Maya Santos Rodriguez never imagined it would be there. 3 simultaneous jobs, maid in the morning, nanny in the afternoon, and offices of office in the evening, could barely pay the tiny apartment rental that shared 4 other immigrants in Queens. But today it was special. After 8 months saving every penny, he finally had enough money for a single meal in that place where he worked by cleaning bathrooms every dawn. The hostess, an arrogant young man named Bradley, approached with a fake smile glued to his face. "Miss, I'm afraid we have a misunderstanding. This establishment requires a specific dress code." "I have money," Maya answered calmly, taking a crumpled envelope out of her pocket. $150. Enough for the executive menu. Mrs. Patterson's laugh echoed through the main hall. "Honey, this is not McDonald's. The cheapest dish costs $200. Maya felt the faces burn, but kept the composure. For months she had observed that world of privileges as she emptied dumps and marble. He knew exactly how much each menu item cost, every glass of wine, every dessert. What these people didn't know was that she understood every word of her condescending conversations and was recording every second of that humiliation. In the last 6 months, Maya had collected systematic evidence of Bella Vista's discriminatory practices, recordings of unwanted clients' conversations, photographs of unmarked policies about selective dress codes, and even internal documents showing how the restaurant deliberately discouraged certain clientele classes. His cell phone, discreetly positioned in his pocket, captured each insult as ammunition for a much larger plane. "It may be better to look for a more popular place," suggested Bradley, gesturing toward the door as if he was casting out a lost animal. It was then that Maya noticed the elderly woman sitting alone at the corner table, visibly trembling right inside the heated restaurant. Her gray hair was messy. Her hand-wrung hands had been holding a cup of cold coffee for a long time. The woman wore only a thin sweater that clearly did not offer enough protection against the brutal winter of New York. Other customers passed the elderly table without even looking. They talked loudly about their luxurious lives as you tried to disguise the cold tremors. Maya watched how the waiters avoided that table, like Mrs. Patterson frowns her nose to see the woman get in early. "Madam," Maya called softly, approaching the forgotten table. "Are you okay?" The elderly woman lifted her eyes, surprised that someone finally addressed her word. "I'm waiting for my grandson," he murmured in a fragile voice. "He said he would come to pick me up, but—" Maya looked out the window. The snowstorm had intensified, turning the streets into a white, cold chaos. No one would go driving in that climatic condition. You were clearly abandoned there, another victim of the subtle but systematic contempt that characterized that establishment. Without hesitation, Maya took off her own coat, the only one she had, bought in a thrift store 3 years ago, and kindly put on her trembling shoulders. The fabric still carried the heat of his body. "Girl, you don't have to," protested the elderly woman, but Maya was already adjusting her coat around her. "Of course I need to," Maya smiled. "My grandmother always said that the cold hurts more when we are alone." Mrs. Patterson watched the scene with increasing unbelief. "Miss Rodriguez is causing a scene. Please take it immediately, or I will call security." Maya maintained that disturbing serenity that only exists in those who have faced much worse storms and found that her true strength grows just as others try to diminish her. His eyes revealed a silent determination, as if that humiliation were just another piece of a much greater puzzle that she had been riding for months. "It's okay," Maya said calmly, taking her bag. "I was already leaving." As he walked toward the door, now no coat in the snowstorm, something in the intense look of the elderly made her stop. For a brief moment, Maya captured a strange glow in those tired eyes, as if you were evaluating every gesture, every word, every reaction with an accuracy that seemed out of place to someone seemingly abandoned and vulnerable. The woman murmured something softly that sounded like "perfect," but Maya wasn't sure if she heard correctly. There was something in the lady's posture, in the way her fingers moved discreetly toward a face that didn't match her helpless look. There, in the face of all the eyes of contempt, Maya remained firm, as one who keeps a secret too powerful to reveal before the right time. Their next actions would prove that some people observe much more than they appear, and that true wealth sometimes has been disguised in the most unlikely forms. If this story of unexpected humiliation and kindness aroused its curiosity, be sure to subscribe to the channel to find out how a simple act of generosity would become the catalyst for a turnaround that would prove that it is not always vulnerable to. Maya left Bella's scene without looking back, but the crisp cold in Manhattan without a jacket could not freeze the controlled fury that grew in her chest. Each step on the cold sidewalk was calculated, every breath a new strategy being formulated. For 8 months cleaning that restaurant, she had collected enough evidence to destroy that prejudice, disguised prejudice of sophistication. The apartment in Queens that divided with 4 other immigrants was silent when he arrived, shaking with cold. Her roommates were already sleeping. Maria worked on the dawn shift in a laundry. Anna cared for the elderly in an asylum, and the sisters Carmen and Sophia cleaned offices at night. All fought for the same impossible dreams that Maya pursued. Maya turned on her old laptop and opened the folder called Evidence Bella Vista. For months he had systematically documented each act of discrimination witnessed. Mrs. Patterson photos refusing tables for inadequate customers, conversation recordings where Bradley was booing to maintain a certain standard in the establishment, screenshots of WhatsApp groups where employees moved from customers who did not fit the desired profile. But the most explosive material was hidden in a separate folder. 3 weeks ago, while emptiness of the office, Maya had found internal documents revealing that Bella Vista received public subsidies to promote diversity and inclusion in the community. The same restaurant that systematically discriminated against people like her was receiving government money specifically to do the opposite. His investigation had revealed something even more sinister. Bella Vista was the property of Richard Blackwood, a businessman who regularly appeared in the media as a human rights defender and philanthropist dedicated to social justice. Blackwood had built his public reputation on an image of inclusion and equality, while secretly operated establishments that practiced just the opposite. The next morning, Maya woke up with a text message from her supervisor at the hotel where she worked as a chambermaid. Maya, unfortunately, we had to dismiss you. We received some complaints about your behavior and decided it would be better to end your collaboration. Good luck, she laughed bitterly. Mrs. Patterson had been efficient. A simple connection had cost Maya one of her 3 jobs, but that arrogant woman had just made the mistake that would turn her momentary victory into her own destruction. Maya took the phone and called her cousin Elena, who worked as a legal assistant in a civil rights office. Elena, I need you. It's time to use everything I learned by watching those people for months. What happened, cousin? They fired me for giving my coat to an elderly lady, but what they don't know is that they have just attacked someone who has 8 months of documented evidence of the most systematic discrimination operation you've ever seen. Elena was silent for a moment. Maya, are you serious? Do you have real evidence? I have recordings, internal documents, photographs, and even evidence of public money fraud. Richard Blackwood has built an empire based on hypocrisy, and I'm going to overthrow everything. That afternoon, Maya received an unexpected proposal. The family for those who worked as a nanny, the Morrison, called her for a conversation. Mr. Morrison was a corporate lawyer, and his wife worked in public relations for the great agency. Maya, we know you lost your job at the hotel today, said Mrs. Morrison gently. We also know why. Maya was surprised. How do you know? Our daughter told us about an elderly lady you helped last night. This lady is Eleanor Whitmore, my mother-in-law. The world stopped. The elderly of the restaurant was the Morrison mother-in-law. Maya felt as if all the pieces of a complex puzzle are fitting impossible. Eleanor told us exactly what happened at Bella Vista, continued Mr. Morrison, and also told us about her extraordinary kindness. She was very worried when she learned that you were fired. Mrs. Morrison leaned forward. Maya, meu marido pode ajudá-la legalmente, e eu posso garantir que sua história chegue aos veículos de comunicação certos. Mas precisamos saber, você está preparada para uma guerra? Maya looked at both of them, feeling that fate had conspired to put powerful allies in her way exactly when she needed it most. I've been prepared for 8 months. That night, while organizing his evidence with Elena and planned the legal strategy with Mr. Morrison, Maya received an unexpected call. It was Bradley, from Bella Vista. Maya, look, Mrs. Patterson is a little sorry for what happened yesterday. Maybe we can talk about you back to work here. You are a good employee. The irony was delicious. They had realized that they might have gone too far, but they still had no idea of tsunami who was forming. Bradley, thank you very much for the call, but now I'm too busy to work by cleaning bathrooms. Busy with what? Maya smiled, looking at the stacks of evidence scattered around the table. Busy changing some things around here. After off, she opened her laptop and started typing the first of many emails she would send in the coming days. The subject was formal denunciation. Systematic discrimination and fraud with public resources, Bella Vista establishment. What those privileged people did not know was that every act of contempt had been meticulously documented by someone they considered invisible, but in fact observed everything with the accuracy of those who know the true value of justice. Each humiliation suffered had become fuel for revenge that would completely redesign the power map of that small world where they thought themselves were untouchable. For 3 days in a row, Maya plunged into an investigation that would reveal layers of corruption much deeper than she had imagined. His unexpected allies, Mr. Morrison with his corporate legal experience and Mrs. Morrison with his media contacts, turned their solitary search for justice into a coordinated strategic operation. Elena, her cousin lawyer, had gotten access to public records that confirmed Maya's most explosive suspicions. Press, this is a time bomb. Bella Vista not only discriminates clients but defrauded statements for the federal government. They received $300,000 in subsidies to promote diversity, but in practice they do exactly the opposite. Maya studied the documents with the accuracy of an auditor. Government contracts promising racial and social inclusion, fictitious reports on diversity programs that never existed, photos of forged community events using actors hired to simulate various customers. Richard Blackwood had built an empire of institutionalized hypocrisy. Mrs. Morrison called the next morning with even more surprising news. Maya, I talked to my mother-in-law Eleanor about that night. She told me something interesting. It wasn't coincidence to be at Bella's scene that specific night. What do you mean, Mrs. Morrison? Eleanor is a member of the council of various philanthropic foundations. She had received anonymous reports about discriminatory practices in Bella Vista and went there to investigate personally. When you gave her coat, she was not just being kind. She was saving the restaurant's reputation unknowingly. Maya felt all the pieces fitting. Was she testing the atmosphere? Exactly. And your kindness turned out to be the final evidence that the problem was not customers, but management. Eleanor wants to meet you in person. The meeting took place in the elegant residence of the Morrison. Eleanor Whitmore, at the age of 78, was very different from the fragile lady that Maya had helped. His eyes shone with sharp intelligence, and his stance revealed decades of leadership in charity organizations. Maya, honey, that night you showed me that the real class has nothing to do with money or surname. I need to tell you something important about my family. Eleanor explicou que era viúva de William Whitmore, fundador da Whitmore Industries, uma das maiores corporações de real estate development of the country. But more crucially, it controlled a philanthropic foundation with $50 million, specifically intended to combat racial and social discrimination. I'm looking for young people with exceptional character to lead new foundation projects, people who show integrity even when no one is watching. Maya was silent, processing the magnitude of what she was hearing. I want to fund a complete investigation into discriminatory practices in establishments that receive public funds, starting with Bella Vista. Meanwhile, Richard Blackwood was beginning to press his employees after discovering that some problematic former employee was asking uncomfortable questions. Mrs. Patterson received direct orders to solve the problem Maya Rodriguez before it caused more damage. Bradley called again, this time with a threatening tone. Maya, some important people are bothered by their recent activities. Maybe it's time to stop creating confusion and move on. What kind of confusion, Bradley? You know exactly what I'm talking about. These questions you are asking, these documents you are looking for. It can be dangerous for an immigrant like you keep moving on issues you don't understand. The veiled threat confirmed that they knew about their investigation, but also revealed their growing despair. Maya hung up and immediately called Elena. Press, they just threatened me by phone. Did you manage to record it? Every word. And I have more news. I was able to schedule a meeting with the federal prosecutor responsible for fraud involving public funds. He is very interested in his material. That night, Maya organized all her evidence in a devastating dossier. 8 months of secret recordings, photographs of discriminatory practices, internal documents leaked showing non-written racist policies, evidence of fraud with public money, and now recordings of direct threats. But the most powerful item would be revealed only the next day. Eleanor had used his contacts to find that Richard Blackwood was being investigated by the FBI for money laundering through his establishments. Bella Vista was just the tip of the iceberg of a much larger criminal scheme. Maya, said Eleanor for an afternoon call, will you become the main complainant in a federal investigation? Are you prepared for this responsibility? Maya looked out the window of her small apartment in Queens, thinking of all people like her who faced discrimination daily. I've been prepared for a long time, Mrs. Whitmore. What neither Eleanor nor Maya knew was that Richard Blackwood had decided to take drastic measures. The next morning, he would implement a plan to discredit Maya publicly, using press contacts and false criminal accusations. But the timing of its counteroffensive would be the fatal error that would transform its attempt to silence a young immigrant, determined in the final catastrophe of an empire built on lies and prejudice. That would be the last night that Richard Blackwood would sleep quietly, thinking that his power and privilege would protect him from the consequences of decades of arrogance and systematic discrimination. The next morning, Richard Blackwood woke up confident that his intimidation strategy had worked. His calls to influential media contacts in the immigration department would ensure that Maya Rodriguez disappeared silently before causing more problems. He had no idea that he was about to face the worst day of his life. The first bomb exploded at 8:30 a.m. The New York Times published a devastating investigation with the title, Empire of Hypocrisy, as a billionaire philanthropist defrauded the government while discriminating with minorities. The article detailed each penny of the $300,000 in federal subsidies that Bella Vista had received to promote diversity, contrasting with secret recordings of employees discriminating clients based on race and social class. Mrs. Patterson almost passed out when he saw his own photo on the first page, accompanied by transcriptions of his most prejudiced conversations. "It may be better to look for a place better for your budget," was highlighted in quotes, followed by the explanation that she referred to a young Philippine young man with enough money to pay the bill. At 9:15 a.m., federal agents broke into the Blackwood Enterprises offices with search and seizure warrants. Richard watched, paralyzed while carrying computers, files, and documents he thought was safe. His secretary nervously informed him that all newspapers in the country were calling for comments. But the true devastation started at 10 a.m., when Maya appeared live on the most watched morning program of the country. Sitting alongside Eleanor Whitmore, whose identity as one of the most respected philanthropists in the United States had been revealed, she calmly presented 8 months of meticulously collected evidence. "For months, I worked cleaning Bella Vista's bathrooms," Maya explained to millions of viewers. "Each night, as they thought I was invisible, I documented their discriminatory practices, every racist conversation, every client rejected by his appearance, every lie told to the government." The host reproduced recordings that made the whole country stop to listen. Mrs. Patterson's voice saying, "We need to keep a certain standard, you understand," by referring to Black and Latin customers. Bradley boasting how filtered, inadequate people even reached the tables. And even more devastating, Richard Blackwood's own voice instructing employees about subtle methods to discourage unwanted clientele. Eleanor Whitmore looked straight at the cameras. The Whitmore Foundation was investigating complaints about Bella Vista when Maya showed exceptional character by helping me on that cold night. Its kindness not only saved a lady from the cold, revealed that the problem was never customers but the corrupt administration. At 11 a.m., the May Justice hashtag was already a worldwide trend on Twitter. Viral videos showed customers getting up and leaving Bella Vista in protest. Employees began to renounce publicly, some revealing more evidence of discrimination they had witnessed. Richard desperately tried to control the damage, but each movement only worsened his situation. His makeshift interview for CNN was a complete disaster. Visibly nervous and sweating, he denied all the accusations while his own recordings were reproduced in the background, denying every word he said. "These allegations are absolutely false," he stated, just as a recording his instructing Mrs. Patterson about maintaining proper standards touched loud enough for the whole country to hear. The fall was brutal and systematic. At 1 p.m., 3 large corporations canceled millionaire contracts with Blackwood Enterprises. At 2 p.m., Bella Vista's board of directors voted for Richard's immediate removal from CEO's position. At 3 p.m., his wife was seen leaving home with bags, followed by divorce lawyers. Mrs. Patterson and Bradley were fired in the middle of the live TV show by the new interim manager, trying to save the reputation of the establishment. Both came out escorted by security while reporters documented every second of their public humiliation. But Maya's revenge had a final layer that didn't even plan. Eleanor Whitmore announced that the Whitmore Foundation would buy Bella Vista and turn it into the Maya Rodriguez Training Center for Inclusion and Hospitality, an institute that would train restaurant employees on diversity and respect, using Maya's own recordings as examples of what never to do. Richard Blackwood, sitting alone in his empty office while federal investigators cataloged his assets, finally understood the magnitude of his defeat. The young immigrant that he had tried to silence not only had destroyed his empire, had turned his fall into the founding of something larger and more powerful than he had ever built. That night, while watching her own ruin being reported on all news channels, Richard realized that she had completely underestimated not only Maya, but the devastating power of justice when she finally finds her voice and her allies. His arrogance had powered exactly the strength that would destroy him, proving that some battles are lost just as he decides to lock them against people whose character is forged in adversity instead of being broken by it. 6 months after the public explosion that destroyed the empire of Richard Blackwood, Maya Rodriguez walked through the corridors of the newly opened Maya Rodriguez Training Center for Inclusion in Hospitality. The walls featured photographs of restaurant employees being trained on diversity and respect, many of them former Bella Vista employees who had lost their jobs when the establishment definitely closed. The center had become a national model. Entrepreneurs from all over the country sent their teams to the 3-week program that Maya had developed along with Eleanor Whitmore. The curriculum included modules on unconscious prejudice, inclusive hospitality, and case studies based on the own recordings that Maya had collected, now used as devastating examples than ever. Maya, now 20 years old and graduated from hotel administration with a full Whitmore Foundation scholarship, had become one of the most requested consultants of the country in corporate diversity. Companies paid tens of thousands of dollars for their lectures, where she told her history and taught business leaders about the actual costs of discrimination. The most ironic thing was that the center's success had created an unexpected demand for Maya as a speaker at high-level corporate events, just the same environments that previously rejected it. Now, executives who would never have paid attention to a young Philippine immigrant paid fortunes to listen to their authentic inclusion strategies. Richard Blackwood, on the other hand, had literally lost everything. Your company went bankrupt after the canceled contracts and federal fines for fraud. His wife had left him, taking half of the remaining goods. He now lived in a small apartment, working as a freelance consultant for second-line companies who needed to rebuild damaged reputations. Mrs. Patterson never got another job in hospitality. His photo had become a viral meme about discrimination at the workplace, making it impossible for any attempt to return to the sector. Bradley had moved to another state, but the recordings followed him wherever he tried to start over. The most satisfactory aspect of Maya's revenge had not been the destruction of her oppressors, but the transformation she provoked. Hundreds of restaurants across the country had implemented rigorous policies against discrimination after seeing the devastating consequences of the Bella Vista case. The hashtag #MadeJustice had become a movement, encouraging service workers to document and denounce discriminatory practices. Eleanor Whitmore, who became a mentor and maternal figure for Maya, watched proudly how the young woman had turned trauma into purpose. "You have proven that the most powerful revenge is to build something bigger than those who tried to diminish you could ever imagine," she said during Maya's graduation ceremony. During one of his most popular lectures, Maya met face-to-face with an executive who seemed suspiciously with someone he had ever known. After the presentation, he approached nervously. "Miss Rodriguez, I work for a real estate development company. We are interested in implementing their programs in our restaurants and hotels." Maya smiled politely, but something in her eyes made the man lightly back off. "What's interesting? And what is the name of your company?" "Blackwood. New Horizons Development. We have changed recently." Maya nodded slowly. Richard Blackwood had tried to start over with a new corporate identity, but she had sniffed the scam in seconds. "Send a formal proposal. We will analyze if your company meets our ethical standards." That night, as he reviewed the extraordinary success his life had become, Maya reflected on how that cold night of December had changed everything. Giving his coat to an unknown lady had triggered a sequence of events that turned humiliation into empowerment, discrimination in justice, and silence in a powerful voice. His apartment in Queens had been replaced by an elegant loft in Manhattan, but Maya kept the family photo featured, always remembering where she came from and why she fought. His immigrant sisters had benefited from the connections and opportunities that Maya created, proving that the real victory is one that raises the whole community. The best revenge had not been to destroy Richard Blackwood. It had been to build a legacy that made him completely irrelevant. While he struggled to survive professionally, Maya created a future where people like him would simply have room to thrive through prejudice. Richard tried to destroy Maya, but ended up strengthening a much larger force than he could ever imagine. Maya learned that true revenge is not to return the damage suffered. It is to achieve such an extraordinary success that it transforms initial injustice in the first step of a victorious journey. If you have already faced discrimination and want to know how to turn your pain into power, subscribe to the channel for more stories that prove that justice sometimes needs someone brave enough to document the truth and intelligent enough to use this truth as a fuel for a transformation that goes far beyond personal revenge.